Good evening, Madam Mayor, members of the City Council. If you notice in the last 5 or 6 years throughout all of California, you find street vendors everywhere. It's not just the city of Fillmore, it is everywhere. And the reason, and I'll get into it in a bit, because street vendors have been decriminalized by the state of California, so it's not a crime to be a street vendor, and a street vendor believes they've been licensed to go anywhere and everywhere, which is not true. The law is the Senate Assembly Bill 946 that was approved by the governor, and then the behavior of the street vendor, or the environmental health department for the street vendor, that too has been a little bit decriminalized. It makes it a little bit easier to get a permit once you seek a permit. So those two bills were passed, and the vendors believe they can just operate anywhere they want. That's not true. The bills say cities have the ability to regulate them. You allow for them and you regulate them. And that's what we did at the city of Fillmore. Here's a little example. There's Assembly Bill 946 and then Senate Bill 972. In reaction, the city created an ordinance to regulate the street vendor. We pretty much said you're not going to go around the parks. The reason is because they have their own funding sources that they have for Little League and so forth like that. And you're not allowed downtown. So those are two prohibited areas you're not permitted to be. If you're to locate anywhere else, you need a business license and a health permit. And there's some criteria involved in that. When you meet that criteria, you can be a street vendor. Not a single street vendor in the city of Fillmore complies with any of that. There's also the state law, the vehicle code that CHP can help us enforce, is that if you're along Highway 126 and you're a street vendor in the right-of-way, the California Highway Patrol can issue citations there. We do have some of that.
Quick question.
Sure.
So you mentioned that street vending is not allowed within the downtown area. Can you tell me roughly the boundaries of what's considered legally the downtown area?
On Central Avenue, beginning from Highway 126 to Sespe, and then a little bit on each side of Central Avenue on Main Street. Right.
So, for example, at Roan Mills, someone could set up across from Roan Mills by the park, the old
No,
Masonic
that's
Temple
also
Park.
downtown. So I should extend northward. I think it's to Kensington.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just wanted clarification.
Yep.
Thank you.
Not a problem. There are basically two types of vendors. One's our traditional one we've seen for 30 to 40 years that we call push carts, and they roam around the streets. They're not stationary. Nobody's ever really complained about those, not really, and they've been around forever, and there have been very few of them. The other type of street vendor is what we call stationary outdoor kitchens. That is new to us, and that's a full kitchen with propane, and sometimes they have outdoor dining that they create and outdoor lighting. And they typically start at 5:30 in the evening and they go to 11 o'clock at night. And they operate on the weekends. So that's when code enforcement is not here. They use generators. Yes, there's a question.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but the push
filings does not mean that sexual harassment has
license and take their picture, fill out that.
I haven't seen them in ages. They're supposed to. We should do enforcement on them, but I haven't seen that done in a very long time.
I have seen,
Oh, have you?
because staff has asked about the ID cards would usually get generated by my office. So we do have solicitors that come in, renew their permitting process, and then we issue a yearly ID card.
So some of these have the generators, as I mentioned, and they also have tables and chairs for their customers along the right-of-way. They have what we call environmental footprint. They're larger. They're much, much larger. And these are the vendors that generate all of our complaints. The type of complaints we get, if we start with on the left-hand side, public health, is that food does not appear to be prepared in a sanitary condition. There's no restrooms, no areas to wash your hands. When they leave remnants of food behind, and what comes with that are rats, raccoons, and possums. And if you live next door to that, your house is now infiltrated with the vermin. There is illegal dumping we're seeing there. They dump oil and grease and fats down our storm drains. That's very illegal. And that ruins a storm drain. It also plugs up the storm drains. And they also dump it on the ground. And then where they're located, they've damaged the city's landscaping and irrigation, which it'll have to be replaced. In terms of safeties, with a propane, and we just had the recent fires. Some of the complaints we were receiving is that the open flames with the grassland nearby, there's a safety issue with fire. There's concern along Highway 126 with congestion. If you're along the highway, you don't have to pull off safely into a driveway, into a parking lot, unless you just instead park on the shoulder. And that there's unsafe parking practices and that type of safety. There's also, for quality of life, it's a little loud with the noise of the generator. I'm being told by some of the residents, at first they enjoyed smelling tacos in the evening, but after about 6 months of that, they were getting a little tired of that odor. The behavior of the vendor is actually pretty good. And they have no problem with the behavior of the vendor, but some of their customers are a bit unruly. They're loud, they're argumentative, they get into fights, and sometimes there could be unpermitted alcohol sold from these vendors. So we have a balancing act. It's a bit challenging. We need to enforce the regulations that we have. And we have to do it in a way where we don't get confrontation from the customer. I'm the one that goes to the vendors. I go there in the evening, and I go there with the police department. The police department, it serves as the peace officer, just to keep peace. And as I told you before, the vendor's actually pleasant. I ask for their ID, and I get it. And they've been very nice and kind to me. But again, the customers, they're not happy to have police presence there or myself asking a bunch of questions. We need to continue to educate the vendor themselves, and I give them our ordinance and our criteria. They don't follow it, but I tell them, and I try to find out who the owner is. So the operator is not the owner. So please know that the person serving the food, in some cases, they don't even know who the owner is. This takes considerable amount of staff time, and I'll get into one in a minute about how long it really takes. I get help from the police department and Public Works, and that's appreciative. So we have had successes. If you're familiar with Highway 126 and Trestle Way, there's 2.5 acres there. We had at one time 5 food vendors at one time every weekend for a year. And one homeowner was persistent with the complaints. Every single week I would get a call from him, and I'd go there frequently. And we've learned other methods of enforcement. The city of Fillmore owns that piece of property, and we installed a sign there that says no trespassing, and magically they never showed up again. But it took us a year to figure that part out, for me to figure out, because I kept going there and trying to enforce the code. But with the help of the police department, they said, hey, why don't you install no trespassing signs, and it solved it right there and then. But that took about a year. We removed the street vendor on Mountain View. He was on Mountain View and Main Street, and on A Street and 3rd Street. And then was a recent one on a vacant gas station along Highway 126. I forgot the name of that gas station. It's owned by 7-Eleven, but it was named something else by Angel's Donuts. With the help of the police department, that was removed. And they're trying to figure out a way to permanently remove any street vendor on that piece of property and used boats and used cars and those type of things. They're working with our department to try to figure that out. So there has been some successes, but every time I hit one, 5 more comes in its place. So we've decided to work with other departments. That's at the state level, county level, and on the local level with other jurisdictions. I've been going through some training as well as some of the other staff. And we're sharing information from one city to another, from one code enforcement department to another. So if Santa Paula decided to be severe in their regulations, well, those street vendors would come to Fillmore. So we're trying to share information to prevent that from happening, even between Santa Barbara and Ventura County. The Sheriff's Department's been helpful through the entire process, and we will engage a little more with California Highway Patrol. And for the last year and a half, we've been working with Ventura County Health Department. So we'll continue to share information with them. It just takes an incredible amount of time. So what can a homeowner do, or what can a citizen of Fillmore do? Because they get pretty frustrated. So this is what I ask that they do. Observe what's there, and then 2, take a picture of it without interfering with the customer or the vendor. And that's your documentation that you send to me. I keep all documentations, and we use that for enforcement. And submit a formal complaint. Some people don't like formal complaints because their name goes on it. I've never shared that name with anybody. I can't receive an anonymous complaint, but I need one with a name and a telephone number. So those people who have called and complained to me, we have frequent telephone calls. They give me a lot of intelligence of what's happening out there. But I don't tell everybody who it is. And it's very helpful with the information that they give me. So in the future, we'll continue with enforcement and working on collaborating with the other agencies. We'll improve that. We've only just recently learned to begin that process. We thought we were alone in this. And then we'll continue to educate vendors. There's a vendor who moved from an unsafe condition, moved off the highway, still on private property, but it's much safer. It's on the east end of town, and all complaints toward that vendor stopped. And he's not around any residents or anything. They do need to follow permits, and we'll follow up with him. But in terms of safety, that element has been resolved. So we appreciate that. That's my presentation. But whatever is done, it's going to take time. This will have to happen in the evenings because they set up at 5:30. It's best that we get to them the moment they begin to set up. An hour after they set up, the gases are already up, the food's already hot. It's really difficult to remove. We can get into some pretty severe enforcement if we have to, but it hasn't been requested yet, and it hasn't been needed. We've found other means to resolve some of these issues, but it will take a little bit of time. I'll take any questions you may have.
All right, thank you, Kevin, for your presentation. You have any questions? Yes, Carrie.
Yeah, Kevin, that was enlightening, and this is one of those issues we keep hearing more and more about from constituents again. But I have a couple questions. On the formal complaints, what is the reason for the policy on not submitting a name and a phone number with that?
I need to contact them and talk with them about what they see. When they submit the complaint, there's only a small line in there, and they can't fill out all the complaints or all the information on the complaint. And I do need to get a hold of them.
Okay, so simply providing the location isn't sufficient to do that?
I'm sorry?
Providing the location of the vendor?
No, that's not going to be enough. I need to know who's making the complaint, where they live, and just a point of contact.
Okay.
Yeah. I want to let them know also I received it. So a lot of people make a complaint and they think it doesn't go anywhere. It goes right into the round file, right?
That's
But I want to let them know I've received your
Right.
complaint. I'm actually doing something.
Great.
I'm not telling them everything I'm doing every single day, but I want to let them know I've received your complaint
Yeah. that
and we're
makes
addressing
sense.
it.
Yeah, I get that.
But if I could add, I mean, legally, we would accept the complaints that are anonymous, but it's just better and more helpful to staff to eradicate the situation to the extent possible if there's a name and the
Right.
contact information. So if someone's afraid of submitting a code enforcement claim with the name, they should still do it.
Okay. Yeah, but I get Kevin's point too, though, that, you
Yeah.
know,
It's more
to
helpful.
be able to reach out again and say, you know, I'm hearing what you're saying. And then you indicated, and I've heard this before, that it's not the people that are actually serving and doing the cooking, there's a hierarchy involved here. So can you describe for us what type of action's being taken at all to go up the chain a little bit? It's almost like, you know, talking about drug deals where you've got bosses that are, you know.
I don't go up the chain.
I know you don't,
Yeah, I
but I
don't,
mean,
but
what,
so when every single complaint I receive, I quickly call the Ventura County Health Department and I give them
Okay.
every information that I have. And I don't know if they send things up to the district attorney. I don't know if they go up the level of chain. If we witness something, like selling drugs or alcohol, well, then the city of Fillmore will probably talk with the district attorney.
Yeah, that would-
I haven't witnessed anything like that.
Yeah. I'm just thinking, it seems like it's a futile attempt if we're not getting those that are at the top of this whole issue, that are responsible for, you know, setting up these.
Right.
You know, and otherwise you're playing whack-a-mole all the time. I'm sure
Right.
that's how you feel.
Yeah. The district attorney knows about these things, so it's not going to be
Yeah.
new information to him. So he may be working at another level that I'm not.
Yeah, okay. And then, that's all for now, Kevin. Thank you very much, though.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else? Yes, John.
Kevin, I just want to say thank you for that presentation as well. Very thorough. Learned a ton about what we're doing and how we're trying to mitigate that. One question that I think I know the answer to, but do you anticipate at some point having like an online form on the city website where a customer can fill out the form that, you know, has their name, has their phone number, and that way you can not necessarily have to call someone, but just submit it electronically?
It's there now. It's on the
Okay.
city's website. If you go under the building department or code enforcement, you see code enforcement complaint form.
Okay.
And people email that to me all the time.
We can probably work though on making that form fillable, so I'll work with your staff and that way it could just be submitted from the website rather than someone having to print it and then fill it out and then scan it and email it to
I
you.
thought it was fillable, maybe.
But
Well,
they
we
still
can-
have
we
to
can get
save
that
it.
done.
So I'll
Okay.
work with your staff so that we can
Sure.
have it through Cognito and it be more automated.
Okay, all right.
Thank
Yes,
you.
Albert.
Thank you, Kevin, and I've been following this as well very closely and what other cities are doing. And I know like other cities, they come down with a heavy hand and they'll, after several attempts, they confiscate their equipment. But that can get costly because then we have to pay for the storage of that equipment. And what I'm hearing is that doesn't help the problem. They just come back because it's not these guys, it's other people above them. And they just come back with new equipment the next week and just like.
No,
you said,
that's exactly it. But we do have a place to store it without paying anything. I follow that avenue. We haven't confiscated anything yet, but we can. And we can create a method to do that, and I know how to do that. But it's not really necessary when you visit a vendor. You tell them the dangers of it, and you make it 3 or 4 times. By the way, I issue citations also, and then they ultimately get a hint. And you can do other kinds of regulatory means before you lay down the hammer. Because then we confiscate all the food, and we have to figure out what to do with the food too.
All right, thank you. Luis? Okay, thank you. Yes, I'm going to share this with folks and say, okay, start watching the council meeting at this at this minute to hear the presentation
Yeah,
you've
please
done.
do. I just found out a location tonight from some of the council members before the meeting. I didn't even know, so we'll be visiting them. I don't see all of them, so I really do appreciate the complaints. And I'll follow up on every single one.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. I had another follow-up question, and I think Eddie got to mention this to me. So we know that putting up a trespassing sign has worked because you're able to access our sheriffs with that code. And I know some have several have set up on private property. And we know who the property owners are. I mean, they have their signs saying, "Hey, our property's actually for sale or for lease." Has that worked, contacting the property owners to maybe sign some sort of...
They don't know that they have a vendor on their property. So if
How do
you're
we let
an
them
owner
know?
in Bakersfield or in Houston, and not until I send them a photograph, that the person who made the complaint, they send me a photograph of them, and I send that to the property owner, and then we start coordinating with them.
Okay, guys. So again, reinforcing the importance of photos to be able, again, on that arm, to let the property owners know they can work with the city, and then thus we can hopefully use more of the code of trespassing. And then, thank you, Kevin, for, like you're saying, you have to. It's almost like a swing shift that needs to happen in the late afternoon, early evening to try and get them right away. So I'm glad that our city, you and others are willing to do this. But is that also that willingness or that coming from Ventura County Environmental Health? Do you know if they're in any way, adjusting their
it's a
schedule,
little
or at least
frustrating sometimes.
at least a team from Environmental Health, since it is a county-wide
Right.
problem.
Right. Yeah, well, the Ventura County Health Department is the one that's educating myself and Brian McCarthy, right? So they're spending their time on that, and they have one individual who specializes in street vendors, and I'm in contact with him every week. So they have provided that resource. They have difficulty coming here with a number of people to shut down vendors after 5:30. We tried that once, and information leaked out to that vendor that we were coming there for a surprise, and they weren't there that day. And then we came the next day, and they knew that day too. So everybody likes the street. Everyone likes to eat their food and stuff like that. So it's hard to keep those kinds of things quiet. Anyway, the Ventura County Health Department, we appreciate their work.
No, absolutely. Glad you guys are working in concert.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Oh, yes, go ahead.
Just a follow-up comment and question. One thing that we've not talked about is how unfair this is to the people that are doing this correctly. The people that have, the brick and mortar restaurants and following all the rules, doing what they're supposed to do. And it's so detrimental to their business. I mean, I think of maybe the number of tacos that are sold from, one of the vendors versus, and what Vallarta's not selling. However you want to look at it, but it's a completely unfair situation. And detrimental to our existing businesses. And I'm thinking, in situations, let's use a disabled vehicle parked on a street, and it's been there forever, and our code enforcement's knocked on the door, told them whatever, written them a notice, a warning, whatever, and it stays there. I mean, how often do they do that before it gets towed? So that's what I'm thinking, is that I'd like to see it elevated, to the next level. Okay, here, they're out there, here's your warning, don't come back, because if you come back, you're going to lose your equipment. I don't know any other way to get the message across, because I think we're too soft-handed on it. I mean, only because I feel like it's something that's somewhat new to Fillmore in the last couple of years. So I just think it's time to take it to the next level.
Okay. Please note, there is one street vendor that is legally permitted. He's in a trailer by Margaret's Cucina. Right? He has all the proper permits. So please don't complain
It's a
about
food
him.
truck, right?
Yes.
Okay, he's a food
Yeah,
truck.
and so you're right about those businesses. They pay insurance, they pay rent, they pay workers' compensation, they pay business license taxes, they pay all their taxes, all those things that they do that the street vendor is not paying.
And they're sitting back saying, why am I doing it this way? Why
Yeah.
am I spending so much money on my business when I could be, out on a street corner. So that just,
With a permit, they can.
Right, and then that's that message too, is that this could be potential if one, you get permission to be on a certain property, get your health permit, get your business permit.
Yep.
It's, yeah.
You
But
can
again, but not doing it, I think you're right, Carrie, that there needs to be,
They also have to
increased
provide
enforcement.
facilities and
There are places like that in town that will provide those facilities.
Right.
And you can do it.
Okay, yeah, and, I appreciate this update, and it would be great too to, see if there's anything, I'm sure it's going to continue, but if we have changes either for the better or for the worse, I think we would really like to know, because I think we got to talk about taking some further action at the next level.
Okay.
Okay,
All right.
all right,
Thank you.
thank you.